What do you think the current average salary in the UK is right now? I have the latest data available from the Office for National Statistics, which will be able to answer that. And the numbers might just surprise you. We'll look at the average salary and how much you need to earn to be in the top 25%, the top 10%, the top 5%, and even the top 1% of earners in the UK. So you can see exactly where your income sits in the bigger picture. The data also shows which parts of the UK pay the most and which professions are earning the biggest salaries. Starting with a headline number, according to the ONS, the median average weekly earnings for full-time employees was £766.60. That's a 5.3% increase in nominal terms compared to last year in 2024, or a 1.1% in real terms once you adjust for inflation. The median annual salary for full-time employees now sits at £39,039, and that is up from £37,439 from 2024. So before we dive deeper into the numbers, when it comes to talking about averages, it's important to understand the difference between the mean and the median average. The way you calculate it can completely change how the data looks. Let's say you've got 10 people, 9 of them earn £10,000 a year, and 1 person earns £50,000 a year. If you add all of those up and divide by 10, that gives you the mean average of £14,000. But that number isn't very reflective because we have one high earner pulling everything up. If we take the median, we line up all the numbers and take the one right in the very middle, and then we get £10,000. That's a much better representation of that sample. That's why using the median when it comes to averages is better, which the ONS does. It filters out the extreme high and low earners, giving us a much better picture of what most people actually take home. So with that in mind, how do these numbers vary across the country? In London, the average weekly earnings for full-time employees is reported as £958, Wales at £705, Northern Ireland is £757, and the South East averages about £850 a week. The ONS actually has a great heat map that shows these differences visually. You can click on each area of the UK and find out what the averages for that location are. But, and this is key, a higher pay doesn't automatically mean a better standard of living. The cost of rent, transport and food is also much higher in those same areas. So someone earning £50,000 in London might have less disposable income than someone earning £35,000 in parts of the north. Okay, so let's take a look at how much you actually need to earn to fall into the different income brackets across the UK, from the median to the top 25%, top 10%, top 5%, and the top 1% of earners. All of these figures are based on the ONS document Annual Survey of Hours and Earnings, and that collects real pay data from employers across the UK. As mentioned earlier, the median salary is £39,039 a year. To break into the top 25% of earners, you need to be making around £54,000 a year. If you want to go one above and reach the top 10%, that number jumps to £75,000 a year. For the top 5% of earners, that's around £99,140, and if you're aiming for the very elite, the top 1%, you're looking at salaries upwards of £160,000 a year. What's really interesting is how steep that jump becomes after the top 10%. The majority of earners sit within a much narrower range, while the very top pulls away quite dramatically. Keep in mind, these numbers aren't one size fits all. They change depending on your age, industry, and especially where you live. You might be wondering which jobs actually pay the most in the UK right now. According to the ONS, every major occupation group saw pay rises, but some more than others. The biggest jump came from caring, leisure and other services, which was up 7.1%, followed by managers and directors who saw earnings grow by 6.7%. So that shows us that people working in care homes, hospitality or community services had some of the fastest growing pay this year, driven largely by the higher national living wage. If we dig a little bit deeper into the data, the ONS has an interactive breakdown that shows annual full-time earnings for individual jobs. You can play around with that on the website. So what does this actually look like in practice? Let's take a few examples. For legal professions, it shows a 35k a year salary. For secondary school teachers, it was around £40,000 a year. Software developers averaged £56,000 a year, and engineers came in at around about £48,000. If you are in any of these occupations, do they feel reflective? Or do they feel accurate? The table has pretty much every job you can think of here, so from all professions. And of course, those numbers shift based on experience, region, and whether you work in the public or private sector. Finally, when we look at the broader picture, pay by industry, the biggest growth came from financial and insurance services, admin and support services, and energy and utilities also climbed up by the same. That's a huge year for finance, likely reflecting stronger corporate profits, but I guess you probably won't see that as much of a surprise. Meanwhile, industries like retail, manufacturing, and education, they saw steady increases from around 4% to 6%. So depending on what you do and which sector you're in, your pay rise this year may have looked different. But of course, what you earn doesn't really tell the whole story because where you live has an impact. Let's look at how earnings vary across the UK. We know the median weekly earning was £766.60, but that number changes a lot from region to region. So London sits right at the top, almost £8,000 a week, while areas like the Northeast and Wales are closer to 700. But remember, pay is only half the picture. That extra in money comes with much higher living costs, rent, transport, food, and even childcare. Northern Ireland also had the fastest pay growth this year, but it also remains one of the most affordable places to live, so people there may have felt an improvement in their standard of living. It's the opposite story in the southeast. It's still high pay, but growth has slowed to under 3%. So when we talk about average salaries, it's always worth remembering that the same number buys you very different lifestyles depending on your postcode. And that brings us to something even more interesting, and that's how we feel about money. But here's something that might actually surprise you. Even people earning well above average often don't feel wealthy at all. And there's even a phrase for it. It's called money dysmorphia. It's that disconnect between what you earn and how you see yourself financially. You might be in the top 10% of earners, but still not feel well off, especially if everyone around you seems to be doing better. Part of that problem is comparison. For some people, feeling wealthy means having time, security, or the ability to make choices, not necessarily having the biggest salary. And even a 2025 HSBC study found that people in the UK said they'd need to earn a £213,000 salary to feel wealthy. And that's incredible because according to the ONS, that income would place you among the very top 1%. And I think it just shows how perception of money shifts with our surroundings and why even high earners can feel like they're chasing the next level. So whether you're earning close to the median or well above it, maybe the question isn't how much do you make, but how far does your money go and does it give you the life that you want? I would love to hear your thoughts. What income do you think it takes to feel comfortable? Thanks for watching.